So since we have 4 questions, I think we'll answer them and then open the house for a few more. I think how did we monetize? So the interesting part of this Selfies for School was that we had commitment from Vodafone Foundation to actually pay for keeping the girls in school. So this was their commitment. They had money initially for 25,000 girls over a period of 1 year. But since the campaign got wrapped up so rapidly and there was such a people really responded to it. They actually decided to put aside more money, which a foundation of the kind of Vodafone can do. At the same time, why did we stop at 58,000? Because this has to be serviced. And there were NGOs who were already there who could support this at the ground level. Breakthrough is not a service provision organization. It doesn't provide services. So the organization said that this is all they can deliver on. That, at this level, they can only support these numbers. So if we had to go beyond this, which the campaign could have pushed for because it had really gathered momentum, but the reality is you have to deliver the promise. So then we stopped at 58,000. So it's actually, I think the sum total is that you need very strong partnerships to drive this kind of campaign. So I think this was enormously driven campaign by key partners. So I hope that helps.
Just one follow-on question on that.
Okay.
Did the campaign itself, the running of it, result in more donations even though you didn't ask?
No, we didn't ask for donations. We didn't, because I think that would have been very complicated, because already we had, we're asking for selfie, you're asking for money. So we were very clear that this was not a fundraising campaign. And I just want to reflect on one question, which I didn't get your name, but I'll try and reflect on laws for social media. I think this is a big one because just from the India context, we can reflect on that while there seems to be a huge amount of action, there are a lot of self-regulatory laws and self-regulatory practices on what we do on social, but also the government puts out a lot of stuff. But at the same time, I want to bring attention to the kind of violence that actually exists in cyberspace, which particularly women face. Because when women articulate a lot of issues on empowerment, etc., they get trolled, they get harassed, they get stalked. So the reality of cyber harassment is very real. And I think there are some laws on sort of addressing this, but not completely. I think this is a new universe and everybody is trying to deal with it. So it is something that we need to all collectively put our minds behind. And I do understand your question of privacy, confidentiality. I think these are really big ones, because at the end of the day, if I put out something which is, on the issue of, say, gay rights or rights of women, and I know people and I have been trolled on Twitter, and the first time I got trolled I was horrified. I called up my colleague and say, hey, what do I do? Do you think this guy is really going to come knocking on my doors? So she said, no, don't worry, just delete the post. And that's all I did and went to bed. So that's the reality. So I just
Hi. Oops. I hope I answer your question properly. In terms of measuring the impact or the social change, so for the numbers, the reach, that's obviously a lot easier to measure, and we do a lot to measure that. And what's great about Facebook, Twitter, and Google Analytics is that you can very easily and very quickly assess your reach. In terms of your social changing impact, there is, of course, a correlation between changing social norms and what the conversation is and how many people you get to participate in that conversation. So again, you can show something there. But we've been discussing this internally at Sonki, because in the communications unit, we collect a lot of numbers. We have this service called Ornico that, shows us all the newspaper articles that talk about our work every day, and they give us the numbers of the reach and the monetary value of that reach. But I've had a discussion with our monitoring and evaluation manager saying, at what point do we need all of this kind of information? Is it helpful? And we've been talking about doing randomized household studies to go deeper into how did you hear about this, where did you hear about it, and those kinds of questions. So because the analytical cyberspace information can't really show you that, what you do get is anecdotal. And I love Facebook for what it tells you about your stakeholders, the way that people interact with you, the kinds of conversations that you have. We have a campaign to end corporal punishment in South Africa. And it's a very hot topic because people, even people that are gender activists, will say, but I hit my child and that's okay. And so as you look through the conversation threads, you can actually track through the way that now you've started the conversation and people are sharing with each other. It's not scientific, so that's why we're looking at sort of the household studies. But one other point that I just wanted to make that refers back to what I said at the beginning. We at Sonki are not right now doing Instagram, Google+, Pinterest, and so forth. We don't have enough staff to manage that. Maybe when we hire an online editor, then we can take those things on. If you build it, who will manage it? As we've built our Facebook profile and it's getting more and more dynamic, we're getting a lot more input, and people are coming to us for help and services that we don't even provide. And so then we have a responsibility of responding and replying, and it's not supposed to be a one-way, we talk and you listen. It's a network that is conversational. And so that's just another thing to kind of keep in mind, that as you embark on building your social media profile, you have to be able to invest the time to be responsive when you get that kind of feedback. And just on policies and laws, I think that really depends on each country, and I know that certainly Facebook and Twitter try to present themselves as allowing free speech, but and this is both good and bad. You have this ability to flag posts on both, and it's good because people are being bullied and harassed on social media. But during the invasion of Gaza, I was posting on my personal Facebook page my views, and within a second, like a half an hour, I said, where did that post go? It disappeared. I wrote this whole thing and it's gone. And I went to the link and the link was broken. And then I kept actually researching this, and I realized that in Israel, they actually have the volunteer soldiers, they have a room, a technical room. And they're in that room doing propaganda for the government. That's their role, either putting out pro-Israel messages or flagging messages that are pro-Gaza. And Facebook and Twitter, I think, also don't have the capacity to manage what they've created. So instead of actually looking at the post and saying, was there anything offensive in this post? Did anybody swear or offend or attack? It just comes down. Not so much on Twitter, but more on Facebook. So it's interesting to kind of look at the policing mechanisms of the actual technology, but then how people, and that's the thing that we're all kind of talking about, is that this is just a gigantic inspirational tool. It has so much power, and everybody knows it. And that's why even at the level of governments, they are there making sure that they can control the messaging and using whatever technical options are available to them to do so.
Urvashi, were you? Okay, I just wanted to quickly voice my thought on, there was one thought in the room when you were saying that social media is essentially internet-based. There are solutions. In fact, there is a community-based social networking in South Africa, which doesn't really need internet at all. It can be hosted on low-end Symbian phones in the communities. And so essentially, I think what we are trying to advocate here is that you have as practitioners these bunch of tools which you can choose from and customize to your target audience. For example, in our presentation, the Kanpur campaign wasn't so much hands-on on digital as was the Selfies campaign, because Kanpur it's a little away from the city, the internet usage is really down, and even the live feed, what Urvashi was sharing with you, happened with a time lag of 2 to 3 hours max, right? So just to reiterate that every medium comes with its challenges, but I think as practitioners for us, it's really important to know the pros and cons of each and use it to our advantage. I think I really want to put that out on the table. And I think there was a second question. I think you had a question, and maybe Shonali, you can pitch in as in what was the baseline for the campaign. Am I hearing your question correctly? For the Selfies campaign, was it referring to that? Okay. So
Baseline meaning? In terms of research?
Yeah.
No, what was your question exactly? The third.
Yeah, it was about the baseline. For example, if you went to do the social media campaign, did these people know that they're supposed to use some kind of forums? Yeah, well, did they know that they were supposed to? I think, was there some kind of awareness initially when you started doing the campaign?
Actually, no. There was no awareness that this campaign was going to launch. The campaign itself created its own cycle of engagement. However, saying that Selfies for School is absolutely a new campaign. There is nothing to build because as Breakthrough, we worked on the issue of early marriage in rural communities, but this was the first urban engagement that we did run. So
Right.
that's
Yeah, just to add to what Shonali is saying, but for the Kanpur campaign, there was an engagement on the issue and the demand came from the community to do it. We just helped them amplify it and put it across. So we tried to build the networks, whatever the community wanted us to do, it was through them that we got all of this done and along with our local partners there. So both of them are actually two very distinct and very different kind of campaigning engagements that we have presented here. One with a strong requirement that is needed. The other is we're trying to link up a community that does not feel engaged with an issue of early marriage. They don't think that it is their issue. So there are two very distinct and very different campaigns.
So we're opening the house for more questions. Yes, please.
I don't know where the gentleman with the mic. He's there.
How the selfie, those picture is converted into form of, the support financial form. So can you just tell me the process and how those picture convert into money to support those girls?
Any more? Yes.
Yeah, hi. Okay, I just want to know how you convinced Vodafone to come on as a partner. Did they already have a goal to educate this much of girls and you just helped them along? Or what was their purpose out of this project? And any notable strategies that you used here? Okay, thank you.
Remy, do you have a question? Okay. Okay.
Yes, I'm Shaldi from Indonesia. I have a short question, specifically to Serena Patel. You have mentioned about relevant media to your audience. I want to ask two questions. First, how do you identify your audience? And then, can you give us example about relevant content to your specific audience? Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Remy Shawa. I'm with Sonke Gender Justice. Thank you so much for wonderful presentations from the panel. My two questions. One is for Zarina. In terms of the personal and the professional, if you are managing an organization, say Twitter or Facebook account, where do you draw the lines? Or are there any lines at all? And then the second one is, maybe Megan and I could help with this. How do you use the social media to bridge the generational gap between, say, the Generation X and Generation Y? Thanks.
Do you want to take the first one with Vodafone?
Okay, I'll come around.
Okay.
Okay, so start with the Vodafone, the campaign we did on Selfies for School, which was supported by the Vodafone Foundation. So, in a way, it was like a match made in heaven because they were really keen on promoting education for girls, and Breakthrough is mission driven to keep girls out of early marriage. So I think sometimes partnerships are built on a basic fundamental agreement on mission. So this was something that was very clear. For Breakthrough, our model is prevention. So we really believe in prevention of early marriage, and education is one of the ways in keeping girls out of marriage. There are many other things that also need to be addressed. So in this prevention model, we really need to engage more and more people. So in our method of really creating that amplification and engagement, because we believe that unless there's a volume of conversation, social change will not happen. Just 2 or 3 people or a few organizations really championing something. Of course, some change will happen, but normative social change will not happen. So in that case, how do you engage more and more people into the conversation? So it really became a very appropriate sort of, can I say, partnership, in which they really wanted to pay to keep girls in school, which was great. But for us, it was an opportunity to really build out a very actionable moment. So someone here asked about the flow of how this happened. I know it's ridiculously simple, so it sometimes seems unbelievable, but it's true. So we promoted that every selfie you posted, 10 girls will be kept in school. So Vodafone Foundation pays Educate Girls, which is an NGO at the community level, a sum of money per girl for their books, for other requirements to keep them in school. So it's as simple as that. So that was what we were pushing. And since people didn't have to pay, because many people don't want to pay. So the higher you keep the entry barrier, the lower the engagement. So if you create the lower entry barrier low, the higher the engagement. So get them to do things which are not too difficult. Because remember, you're talking to general audiences. You're not talking to whom we call, I think there's a phone in the room, huh? A rough diamond. A rough diamond is who really is, like we are all rough diamonds. We are in this for the mission. And we need a little bit of honing and we'll run. But these are guys who just are coming to you. They're chatting with friends. I said they were posting selfies. Like I talked about those girls on the flight who were sitting behind me clicking selfies. Like that's your audience. So if you can really lower the barrier of engagement, you get them in. Once you get them in, you can start engaging with them and pushing the barrier up. So that's the model with which we operate. I'm not saying it's a foolproof model, but it's a model. So I hope that answers your question.
So at Sonki, our audience ranges from people in villages and communities to UN officials and presidents of countries. So at different times and in different settings, we're talking to these people. So our website, for example, we see as a platform that has to talk across the range. So some of the things on our website, they're a little bit more buried, but they're quite, let's say, boring to the layman, long reports and documents. Those are not things that we would share on Facebook. You could tweet a link to a document because that can then reach stakeholders who are interested in that and are connected to you through Twitter. One of the things that I wanted to show at the computer as an example, and I'm not sure how many of you are doing this, but on Facebook you can boost a post. Mm-hmm. So you can pay a very small amount of money, like $30 and reach tens of thousands of people with that very small amount of money. And in that case, you really can target who your audience is by demographics, whether that demographic is country or age or gender. So for example, we have a petition that we hope you'll go to our Sonki booth and sign, or you can sign it by going to tinyurl/GBV plan. It's also on the banner on our website. But that is really a particular South African petition. So when we boost that on Facebook, we're going to rather focus the money to the South African demographic. For me, because I have a background as a journalist, I also think about media as what audience does this particular media reach. So yes, with our messages about trying to get our government to implement a national plan to combat gender-based violence, we want that message to be repeatedly in the South African Mail and Guardian, in the Daily Maverick, because these are the publications that government officials are reading. If we're doing more community education and mobilizing messages, we want that to be on our rural community station partnerships, our sort of PSA things, because that's the community there that we're trying to target. So with different types of work and different types of messages, we'll use different media and very specifically target different audiences. For Remy's question about personal and professional, that's a conversation we've also had at Sonki. For now, we only have about 5 people, I think, that are 5 or 6, the communications team, the executive director, and 1 or 2 others that are allowed to post directly on Facebook or Twitter. All of these people know that we don't post anything on Sonki's profile that's not completely consistent with Sonki's identity and messaging. We don't, though, either want to, because one, we're an activist organization and we recognize the importance to both completely leave the space open for our staff to have their activist separate life on their own identity, and we want to take advantage of their voice and their audiences. So what we ask our colleagues to do, so say Remy, for example, he has his own Facebook, his own Twitter account. When he goes to the Men Engage meeting in Portugal and he takes pictures and talks about the meeting, he mentions at Sonki Together. Then I see those things and I retweet those things because they're relevant. But if something he happened to post, actually even mentioning Sonki wasn't appropriate, I would then make the call not to tweet that. And just for the kind of internet newbies in the room, I did want to talk just a little bit about the hashtag and make sure that everybody understands what the hashtag is, because it's a really powerful tool. You saw it, like, what is this thing? #Selfies for change. And the hashtag is a tool that allows you to see who's following a particular conversation. It connects a community and helps you filter through those billions of messages on Twitter and say, these are all the messages that have to do with this one particular subject. So here at Men Engage Delhi, the hashtag Men Engage Delhi, when you click on it on Twitter, you will see what everybody in the world is saying who's using that hashtag Men Engage Delhi, whether they're here or whether you follow them. And so for breakthrough, even if people don't mention them, they can click on Selfies for Change, Selfies for School, and then see all the people that are talking about this conversation. So see it like a conversation marker. Thank you.
Those 2 questions that Remy had, even with regard to what Zarina was saying. So in the world that we're in, digital and mainstream communication is really, really fast blurring. So it becomes important, as she was saying, for an organization to have very strict communication policies. And interestingly, she was saying that 5 people are allowed to tweet from the official handle. At Breakthrough, it's only 2 people, and not even Shonali has access to that handle. It's that strict. And even when we want an organizational voice, as Shonali is an influencer herself, and so are other people, the brief given to them is really tight about the campaign. So the messages she might put out, or somebody else in that position might put out, is really, really controlled, and of course marries with the politics of the issue that we're working on. And having said that, I also want to say that as a team, because I lead the communication digital team, and they're very, very dynamic young people, we have to allow them their space for their own voice as well. So essentially, there are people on my team who might not share official posts on their personal Facebook. That's okay. We cannot legitimize it and say that, you have to share everything. We leave it open. After all, we are a human rights organization and freedom of expression is core to our being, right? So that can't be, mutually exclusive. And how to bridge the divide of generations, Remy, it's a fantastic question. As a practitioner, in fact, I was just yesterday venting out to one of my colleagues that, oh my God, social is the way to be, and sometimes as practitioners we face that challenge all the time. But interestingly, Zarina was saying that all the platforms, Instagram, Facebook, etc., have a very detailed analytical background, which is called insights and tweet analyzer and things like that. You can really customize who you want the posts to see. Whether I only want the post, only want Shonali and Remy to read that post, or Lena to comment on a post, I can completely customize that content and reach that specific audience. With regard to how to do the intergenerational divide, I don't have a answer to that because I'm a practitioner myself. But I think that more and more, a large number of people are moving to the medium. In fact, in India, one of the largest band is 45 to 55-year-old women who are on the internet, on Facebook, between, I think it's 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. in the afternoon. That's the largest band. So I think it's slow, but it's going to come. The change is going to come. I think you wanted to say something on that.
So I'm not a digital native. So in internet, I could be said the older generation. So maybe I should take this moment to comment. So in real terms, I didn't use a computer till I was well out of college. And I'm dealing with young people who sort of, even before they know what the QWERTY on the mobile is, they know what to press even without identifying the symbol. So you're really talking to digital natives, who don't understand what the world was without these devices. So that's the first generational divide. Yeah. So I have great fun because I think it really. I'm speaking from a personal perspective because. I think it makes me enormously humble because they are my gurus. Honestly, so I had great fun because when I started on Twitter, I didn't know how to use Twitter. So there's this young colleague of mine who I really call her my tech guru, and I said, okay, tell me what to do. So she gave me all the rundown on what to do on Twitter, what to follow. Don't get, there's no sort of model. Say when you want to speak. There's nothing about 3 tweets a day. Speak when you want to speak. It's your voice, etc., etc. So apart from talking about women's rights, I talk about animal rights because I'm really deeply at heart, I love dogs. So the only other thing I give space on my Twitter is actually animal rights, but that's my space. Slowly, my Twitter numbers outnumbered her number. So now it's a little bit of a competition between us. And she says, I don't want to talk to you, go away. So, I'm just saying that when you talk about the generational divide, it's really great fun. And sometimes we should not allow this to come in between us. It's such a great space to be, and I'm having so much of fun because it's challenging. It's a new way of talking. Can you imagine how many characters can we use on Twitter? 140. And I'm such an impatient person. Those 140 are fabulous for me. I mean, I can just say something in 140 and get on with life. Writing a blog post, I can't. I mean, I'll never get around to it. So I'm just saying that it's a great fun space to be. And if you're talking about intergenerational, I think in today's world, 5 years is a generation. Forget about 10 years. So I think we are dealing with something completely different. So Remy, happy to have this engagement because I think the great time I have is when I'm actually engaging with this really cool digital team. I wish I was younger.
Just one more bit for Remy because you asked about the intergenerational thing, and my dad, who's like 65 above, he's got a new tab, and that's the new toy in his hand, and he is just fascinated. You can see him through and through on it. He just surfs. The way he uses it, the kind of things that he can do with it, it has brought the world actually to his fingertips, and he loves it. So I think what it has done for the older generation is to connect and try and be in step how the younger generation is panning out. And for Indians, a lot of Indians, young Indians who go abroad, this is a way to connect. And the older generation here is trying to catch up with them and to stay connected.
Very well said.
So,
Very well said.
you know, that's how technology is working through the generation now.
I think it was a fabulous session. Thank you. The questions were awesome. So please give yourselves a big hand. We have to close, and we are closing right on time. And if there are some other questions, our lovely ladies are right here for you. So thank you very much and have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.